Happy Saturday. It's Kevin Ely here with Fight Game Media with my good friend Jeremy Finestone. We just finished watching The End of the World and the beginning of a new era in AEW.
And I feel fine.
And I feel it's the end of the world. Now, see, that's what they should have had instead of Welcome to the Jungle.
I heard Welcome to the Jungle, and there was a beat in there with the Okada hitting the riff, and then it went to Moxley, and I was like, at this exact moment, this song is hitting. But I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to hear some Aerosmith next time, or just give me something. Just, give me a,
right. When I hear Welcome to the Jungle, I expect to see Stein.
Social Distortion, just something a little bit. Just change up the catalog. Go to Guns N' Roses one more time. I feel like.
All right, next year, Tony, if you're listening, next year, REM needs to be the highlight video.
That would be super emo.
That'd be fantastic. All right, so we just watched the show. How have you been?
I've been great. End of the year has been pretty gratifying. Got to see some family and getting ready for all the New Japan stuff that's coming up. And wearing the New Japan sweatshirt, the whole deal. And
gearing up for the Dome.
Now I get to talk to you.
Yeah, it's awesome. In other news, I got a pure plank for Christmas.
Ooh. Are we going to have a core like Christian?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm gonna see if I can get Adam Copeland abs by this time next year. I'll report back. I will not be providing a before picture.
Those are middle-aged goals, my friend. I applaud you.
Well, it helps that my work pays for some proactive work health expenses, so it's kind of a free gift.
As does mine, but mine is a little bit more physically intensive in general. So by the time I get to the gym, I'm just like, that part already hurts.
I gotcha. Well, enough about our abs.
Sure.
How did you feel going into this show? What was your excitement level going into this show in general?
Ambivalent.
Okay.
Cautiously optimistic. Mm-hmm. I've been kind of, I'll watch the pay-per-views because I find them to be highly the most entertaining aspect of AEW. But I found the TV to be kind of haphazard, scattershot, listless. Problems. There are problems with how they do their television. And there are little signs here or there that things are turning around and that they're, for the lack of a better term, getting their shit together in terms of like a promotion with their TV. And so going into this, I felt like, okay, this is an opportunity to see if they're going to trend in the same direction. And for the most part, they did until they didn't.
We'll get to that. I'm still processing. Maybe by the time we get to that, I'll process how I feel about it. But I felt kind of the same way. I will confess, I have not watched a lot of AEW in the last 4 to 6 weeks since the last pay-per-view. I missed most of the Continental Classic as it went.
Okay.
Now, I will say, since Christmas, I've caught up. So I have not watched all the shows. What I did do was watch AEW's YouTube channel where they put up a 3-hour cut of the entire tournament. Where they basically, you got to see all the Continental Classic matches after the commercial break.
Okay.
And then all the promos. And then all the promos. Yeah. All the promos.
For you out of this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
You had to crash course the last 4 to 6 weeks of AEW programming. Right. So to you, what were the main takeaways of what they treated as important over the last 4 to 6 weeks?
The Continental Classic, pretty much.
Nothing else.
But I will say also that what I watched was focused on that. So
but you're
kind
looking
of my
through
own
the YouTube
choice.
And you're kind of scanning stuff and you're looking for what like the social media is making the beats of what their thing. Was there anything that you're like taking away beyond that? Like, were they focusing on like Mercedes a lot on there with the women's division, the main event, or was it just like Continental Classic, like
pretty much Continental Classic, and then a little bit of Death Rider action, like of the building to the 4-way and this whole like, can they get along? Because obviously when you're in a 4-way, you need to be getting along with everyone you're against.
Sure.
And so I felt the momentum that, and then I watched the end of Rampage, which was a clever if pointless end, And it felt like, to me, Darby was the emerging star who seems to just be written off for a while. So there was a little bit of like, it felt like Darby was the biggest deal, other than in terms of outside the people building to the finals of the Classic. And then for him to not even be on the show, but we kind of see like, okay, well, they're writing him out for a while so he can make a big return later.
The Rampage write-off.
Right. With the down the stairs, like Ethan Page did with them at Daly's Place a couple years ago. Yeah, so I kind of felt the same thing, where it was like, it felt like they were kind of inching toward getting their act together. But it wasn't, I don't know, it was a convenient time for me to just focus on one aspect of it, which was the tournament. So going into the show, I was feeling like the tournament was going to end well. And that was really all I expected from the show, as far as like managing my expectations. So I wasn't super excited about it, but I knew I was going to get at least 2 really good matches and probably a third really good one.
Sure.
Possibly 2 great ones. And that's what we got. And so everything else felt a little bit like gravy. Some of it I was very thankful for. Some of the things I expected to be really good weren't as good as I expected. And then the end, I feel like they set the table for 2025 in a way, at least the beginning of 2025. I feel like as far as like when you talk about getting their act together, I feel like everything locked into place where they want it. Right now, I'm just trying to decide how I feel about where they locked everything in.
So I'm kind of the opposite of you. I've watched everything minus the Rampage from yesterday, and it was just the last 24 hours. It just did not happen. So I don't know what happened there, but I've watched everything else. And when I went into this AEW pay-per-view, Kevin, I didn't know more than 4 matches that were on the card. And people I was watching it with, they're like, yeah, there's only 8 matches on the main card. So they're really going to spread a lot of this stuff out. And we still ended a half hour early. So, that's the New Year's gift to all of us, is that we get to go to bed a little bit early before
a little bit early.
Real late night. This show was good, and they laid out everything that you needed to know going into the matches. I do think that they kind of missed opportunities here and there after matches to really reinforce why people's interactions were so consequential, and we'll get to those in the certain instances. A couple of missed opportunities, and I think they were focusing on big picture things and minor than the little details. But the little details matter, and those are the Easter eggs, if you will, of why people care about this stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll get more into that as we get into the show. So let's just go ahead and start running the show. Hold on, let me plug my laptop in actually while I'm forgot to plug this in.
Right.
There we go. Okay. Didn't want to like check out early. All right. So I did watch most of the 0 hour. It was pretty disposable. A lot of Renee, RJ City, and Matt Menard doing the panel discussion, which is fine. It's fine, hype piece, whatever. But it'd be more interesting if they get some more compelling personalities involved on there.
They spent a lot of time with those 3, and it was getting to be a bit tiresome.
It was a bit tiring, yeah. And then while I was preparing for you to get home and get ready to do the show, I was watching the media scrum, which was like 20 good minutes of the 3 of them just talking about the show, which I guess I shouldn't fault anyone for, because that's what we're doing right now. But it didn't feel like hosting a show. All right, so rookie Toni Storm made her AEW pay-per-view debut, apparently, or 0 hour debut is what they called it, which I guess technically is true, because Toni Storm's probably never been on the 0 hour.
I mean, they're really starting with from the bottom up kind of, almost the best way to put it is Mike Tyson's Punch Out, where the guy starts at the very bottom.
I respect the commitment to the gimmick at this
one point. By one through everybody and just proving himself till we get to the champ.
So tonight she had Layla Gray, who before the match mentioned that she'd been spending the last 2 months at the New Japan LA Dojo training, so setting some expectations there. She came out with her Top Flight intro. Fans were into this as far as they're into the Tony gimmick. I think they're just into playing along with Tony, whatever Tony wants to do. So they were having fun. So in that sense, it was a pretty good like pre-show match as far as like getting the crowd into it. Layla looked good. It was not like a crazy match that would have shown off a great deal of improvement in each, but they looked pretty good. Tony did a little bit of where she started to do the timeless pose and then caught herself as if she was startled herself by what.
Like she didn't realize what she was doing.
She didn't realize what she's doing, and then she did the hip attack and won the match. Crowd liked it. She was just so happy to be here and have this opportunity. And then later, I'll jump ahead just a little bit. Later, Deonna Purrazzo introduced herself to her. And Tony reminded her that they had met previously, like on a Rampage or something.
Yes.
And Deonna challenged her to a first time ever match on Dynamite this week. So that will be part of the mother of all simulcasts is Tony and Deonna. So interesting little development there, I guess.
How long does this go?
Of it. How long
does this take before like the return or the fusion or whatever?
When is Australia? When's the Australia show?
I think it's February.
So I feel like February. I feel like now the question will be, does she go into that as rookie Tony Storm? I could see them going all the way with it where she like has this, rapid ascent and starts sucking up to Mariah and all this stuff.
If it were the AEW way, you'd have some type of cliffhanger going into the Dynamite or the Collision the week before where like something traumatic happens and she disappears. And then when she comes out, the reveal is Timeless is back at the entrance. They wait for the big moment.
I could see it even happening after the match is over or during the match even.
So there are 4 dates that we can look at towards like goals in AEW coming up, and that's the Australia show, Revolution, it is Double or Nothing, and it is All In Arlington. Like all roads lead to that. And whenever we're mapping any of this stuff out, it's basically going to come down to like, well, when are these things going to happen? And right now, most of this stuff, with the exception of maybe like one thing, feels like Australia or Revolution, and most likely Australia. Mariah and Tony kind of feels like Australia. Can you stretch it out longer than that?
I don't know. And at the same time, it feels too early. Like because when it happened and when Mariah won the title, they just separated completely. It feels almost too fast to like resolve it this fast. So,
if Tony was gone 3.5 months, the rebuild should last just as long, theoretically. Like 3.5 months of that before she begins the third act of questing for the title. In my mind, you pace it out to make sure. So 3.5 months would mean more like Double or Nothing.
It would also be very AEW for them to have Tony Storm in her rookie gimmick face Mariah May in Australia and lose.
Yes.
And then build to a rematch down the road. But we will see. We will see.
Fantastic idea. I commend you on that.
That's just me knowing what they've done in the past. So, all right. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday with Deonna. Probably not much. Daniel Garcia and Mark Briscoe joined the pre-show panel and did some analysis, scintillating analysis of the show, particularly the Continental Classic. Notable thing at the end of that was that Mark Briscoe pointed out that he beat Garcia in the Classic and therefore deserved a TNT title shot. Garcia responded that he didn't, that he deserved a lot of things, but not that. And then later in the show, they announced that the match is happening. So I guess Garcia didn't get his way. But that will happen on Collision 1 week from tonight, which I'm looking forward to that. I think it'll be a good match.
I like the idea of Daniel Garcia getting some wins over some names And I think Mark Briscoe is a guy that can easily like lose a match to Daniel Garcia and make him look good and just kind of slowly get him there. You know, like they're shooting a rocket to some guys, but Daniel Garcia, you're not gonna be able to shoot a rocket on. Like you have to legitimize him slowly but surely with all these matches. Briscoe's a great guy to start with.
I think I agree. I on the Dynamite show, I joined to do some year-end awards, and Mark Briscoe was my breakout star of the year. Because he legitimized himself as not just the sentimental favorite, but a person who actually had credibility and means something when he wins and loses. And I think it's a great use for him to do that right now. He can give up the loss, and it actually means something for Garcia to beat him. All right, Jeff Jarrett wrestled Big Doom QT Marshall.
What an elementary match. Jeff Jarrett is a pro.
Yeah. He could this is like high school gym wrestling. This is just coming out and just doing a demonstration of basic pro wrestling.
Small market main event wrestling.
Yeah, total. And this is the kind of match where like the high school principal would be like a fundraiser, and the high school principal would like pull the chair away from the bad guy to, do the win. It's just like it's
what it reminded me of?
Proof wrestling. What?
It reminded me of like some of the sequences in that show Heels, like with those main event matches that they would do, like that they show in Heels. It felt exactly like that. Just that
is. Yeah, we just needed to be inside the barn.
Oh my goodness. Fun match.
So yeah, it's fine. Jarrett won with the stroke after Jay Lethal prevented Aaron Solo from interfering, and then Jarrett later backstage made a dramatic announcement that he would be making another announcement on Wednesday about his career. So
the other takeaway from this, AJ, Boom, Big Justice, the Kid, they're all coming back. QT Marshall, this whole thing is not over. This is all just like in absentia of AJ the Boom, this match was done.
That's fine. Yeah. And as long as if they keep it contained, it's fine. Whatever gets you some Costco views.
There's gonna be a rant coming after this next match description.
Okay.
Please have at it.
Yes. So instead of having a World Tag Team title match on this show, there was a pre-show match with Top Flight and the Outrunners versus Leo Rush, Action Andretti, and the Murder Machines of Brian Cage and Lance Archer. It was an 8-man tag match, mostly showing off Andretti and Rush as a team, and some mild tension between them and their heel teammates. And see if there's anything notable. I did like the finish where Leo tagged on Archer and then leapt over him as he was arguing to get the frog splash pin. So Leo and Action came off as a good cocky team. They already have a title shot, and that's coming up on Collision, I believe. But as far as this match, it was kind of pointless. What's your rant?
Private Party sucks as a tag team championship.
They're trying, man.
Maybe 2 matches. They've had maybe 2 matches. No, they've given no opportunity. Like, this is exactly the concern everybody had about how they were going to be booked and how they were going to be treated. They're going to get this match to prove to everyone in AEW and outwards that people that they've invested in for the last 5 years, that they've grown and they can do something with. Well, you've kind of fallen on your face a little bit here for the fact that you've literally done nothing with these guys once you've given them the ball to run with it. You put them in a room and said, bounce it against a wall by yourselves. We'll get back to you when we're done with everything else. Yeah, the C2 was more important. Yes, the women's division is important. But these guys disappeared. They're your tag team champions. I saw 5 teams on this show that I would rather have those belts on, including 4 teams that were in this match, about what they're moving forward. Like fantasy booking Cage and Lance Archer is just killing these guys and running roughshod over the division for a while. Andretti and Leo just having banger, like high-flying matches. But whatever you do, you have to make it important. And then you run the risk of potentially in 2 or 3 weeks, the Young Bucks coming back and them potentially having the IWGP titles around, and then you're treating those as potentially more important than Private Party and the tag titles, and it's just like, this was all a mistake. It was just all a mistake. Private Party does not benefit from being lame duck champions or placeholders for the next big thing. You're not giving them any opportunity, and you had 4 teams here that I loved watching. The Outrunners, the crowd went haywire for them when they came out. They went haywire for Tony Storm. You know, they went haywire for Jeff Jarrett. Like, they had their favorites, and these guys were one of the favorites. And then Leo Rush and Andretti were working their asses off. You could tell the Murder Hawk Monster and Brian Cage are motivated right now. You know, Cage looked like the reincarnation of Hercules Hernandez from the 80s right now to me. And it's just like the big jacket.
He looked like an inflated Austin Aries.
And it's like, you have so much opportunity, and you just watch these teams, and you're just like, any one of these teams are better than what they're doing with right now. And I don't blame Private Party for this. You know, they've simply not been given the opportunity or the confidence to execute these things. And, you know, you do have a chance. You will have to prove when you had a chance. But even these matches that they had, that acclaimed 4-way match, the match wasn't even about them. And I can't remember any match they've had after that.
Yeah, I don't even know. I saw one like promo video of them like going through the streets of New York. Had nothing to do with being a match. Now, I will say, when they pulled the trigger on Leo and Andretti at the same time that they put Private Party in this position, my thinking was, oh, okay, they're just going to kind of put the tag titles in a bubble right now with 3 teams feuding over it and do kind of that kind of, you know, version of the, like when in 2002 with the SmackDown 6, when they just have like 6 guys, 3 teams that know how to work a certain style with each other, and just have them bang after bang after bang for like a couple of months.
Okay.
I would have been fine with that. And that may be what they're doing in January. I don't know. You know, we'll see.
I do not think that these guys have the pedigree and the training for what you're proposing.
But they know how to work with each other, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Now, they would be better off having a TV main event, or not a main event, but a TV tag title match against the Murder Monsters, who would make them look really good. But you know,
theoretically, they should be wrestling all 4 of these teams in singles matches and winning if they wanted to have them have a dominant reign.
I agree.
You know, like, I don't think any of that is going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm leaving room for the possibility that this match on Saturday might lead to a top flight, you know, like that kind of thing that might let them shine a little bit. But you're probably right. They probably just have it.
We're going to have FTR coming back, obviously. And looks like we have a new tag team with O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, potentially.
Yeah.
You know, just like Grizzled Young Vets, God knows what happens with them and where they've gone or whether they're ever coming back. But then you have the Young Bucks, and like you have 10 teams out there right now, and Private Party is simply not facing any of them. And
I think the most telling,
yeah,
I think the most telling thing is most of the teams that you just listed are bigger deals and have their own the problem with, they have their own little pocket universes that they're in. You know, like the tag titles are not involved with the Death Rider program right now.
It's almost as if like the tag titles bring down whatever program that they're in, or they're like a handcuff to telling the stories they want to tell. And unfortunately, if you value the tag titles, you can't tell those stories because they're not conducive to valuing the titles that are already in existence. It's like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. Tell these long form like stories with these guys. Like, but if you're the guy that's best suited to hold these titles right now, and you need to do something different, your creative like juices sometimes just need to help the company. And
if you're not going to invest in the tag titles as a division, as a drawing division, you may as well put them in your main event feuds. Like put FTR in there, have Wheeler and Claudio win them, and have them be something that gets feuded over as the part of this Death Riders takeover of the whole, you know, division where they hold all the belts and all this stuff. But anyway, I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Main show.
Ooh, here we go. Let's cool down a little bit here.
My concern going into this show was I felt pretty sure that they were going to start with Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, and I was worried that it would heat up the crowd too much too soon, and the rest of the show would have a hard time keeping up the energy. I was very glad.
Congratulations, Kevin Ely. That's exactly what happened.
Well, I don't know. I give that crowd. Yes, it was. It was far and away the best. It wasn't until Will Ospreay came out that another match even came close to touching it.
I would argue that crowd didn't really come back alive again until Takeshita and Hobbs. Like,
I don't know.
Okada and Ricochet was good.
Yeah.
But then you had the May versus Rosa match and the MJF versus Cole match. None of those lit my world on fire as much as I wanted them to.
No. But I mean, as far as the crowd response, I felt like they were still pretty invested in the
matches. But nothing could follow that for a significant amount of time. No. Okada and Ricochet did a fantastic job, but nothing could follow that.
No. Except so we'll get to that in a second. So so Kyle and Will coming in. I think most people probably felt like Okada Ospreay was going to be the final. And so even though the winners weren't really in very much doubt, there were still people pretty invested in these matches. Fletcher came out. He's still just continuing to carry himself like a big deal, investing in his entrance gear. But his facials and stuff like that is what I noticed this time as far as playing a character. One thing I really noticed while doing like this super quick, deep dive, cramming the C2 leading into this was, I feel like Kyle has a good future outside of this outside of this Ospreay feud because of the way he carried himself. He was the most heelish heel in the C2, even over Claudio. Like Claudio, people booed, but they didn't really care. With Fletcher, if he was in with another heel, the other heel got here.
I got you.
Yeah. Right. And the way that he used the ropes to win and things like that, it was like he wasn't just out there having bangers and being cocky. He was really doing things that was just being a true heel, and that's kind of rare these days. Is for someone to really do that who's a really good worker. Let's see. So they were fifth gear right off the bat. I mean, they just came out going like crazy. Ospreay got blood quickly, a lot of it. And I didn't even catch exactly what it was that did.
He got lawn darted by Fletcher into the outside barricade, and in the extended period of time, he came up with a extremely deep gash along his forehead.
He definitely was going for it today, and they just had an
air valve next to the other cut, so it really could get a little bit of gravity going there. It was gushing.
So it was a lot. It was a lot to take in early. But man, they just kept the action up. They had some incredible moves. I didn't even write down some of the sequences because they were hard to track. Let's see. There was one thing I didn't like. There was a certain point where they were both down. They started doing headbutts with each other. At first, I thought, "Oh no, this is going to get bad." But they eventually started actually doing the head on neck thing
total, but then quickly pivoted, but did it in such a way where you kind of were like, "Oh, now it's safe."
Led to a great move though, where Ospreay kept goading him into doing the headbutt, and Fletcher goes in for a diving headbutt, and Ospreay just kicked him in the face, which was really fun. There were some good payoffs that I noticed from earlier in the tournament where Fletcher was doing things that got him wins earlier and didn't get him to win. Great hidden blade from Fletcher, I believe. And then that sheer drop brainbuster, man, he hits that thing so well. That was a really good 2 count. And then Will hits the Styles Clash, which always gets over. Whenever you get someone in the Styles Clash position, people go nuts. But usually it's a 2 count. But in this case, it was a 3, and Will got the win. People really responded well to that. Excellent match. I don't usually do ratings, but that's tippy top match. And I don't even know where it falls in the pantheon of just even Will Ospreay's 2024, but it was just as far as a self-contained like match that's not meant to close the show, just fantastic. Couldn't have been any better, I don't think.
Will Ospreay came out a winner tonight, despite not winning the C2 because of that match. When people start watching the show and it's on whatever the C2 listing that they have on Matt's one day for next year, and they watch this semifinal match, they're gonna be like, "Holy crap, this was amazing!" They're gonna see everything, and this is gonna be one of those recommended matches that you hyperlink and like, "Oh, check this out on Matt's." This is one of those matches that people are going to be talking about as, was this the best opening match of any pay-per-view of all time? And, there are a couple arguments and a question here or there, and it kind of came up to like, well, if there's a recency bias, was it better than, Punk and Drew at Hell in a Cell? And you could go either way on that one, but that's the level of what we're talking about here, is that this was simply just two guys that trusted each other and just went balls to the wall for 15 minutes and brought each other to another level. And I'm really happy for Fletcher. I am worried about what his future is outside of feuding with Ospreay and doing all this stuff, but he's too talented to miss. It would be, promotional malpractice if they can't get this guy to the next level. And future's bright for him. Will had just another fantastic performance. His selling after the match, woozy, climbing back up to the ring steps. The camera, they made a point to really sell his walk back, knowing that he's got to walk later. He had put his handprint on the little circle light thing with the bloody print. And he was like, and then you thought, holy crap, this guy's got to go out there and do this again later.
Yeah. It was great.
Just a great setup for, the dramatic hero moment.
Yeah. Good camera work tonight across the board, I think. Also, there were a couple of things that they shot that were really good. One of the things when he was walking up, they got a good close up of Kyle, who just played it perfectly. He was just seething, just beside himself with rage that he lost because he knew he lost,
There was one camera shot, I think, in the Kris Statlander Mercedes Moné match, and I was like, okay, that was perfect. And we'll get to it, but there was one. And I was just like, you did it, guys. That was it.
Okay, so then they follow it right up with Ricochet versus Kazuchika Okada.
They did have to wait like 5 or 10 minutes while they cleaned up all the blood on the mat.
They did have to talk while they changed the mat or whatever they did.
It was that bloody, everybody.
It was like a constellation of blood on the mat.
Yes, it was a UFC fight.
Yep. So they pull the mat, and out comes Ricochet. Crowd knows their part. They know what Ricochet is up to right now and how we're supposed to be responding to him. So they were happy to play along, booing him right away. Okada came out to a huge pop. The best reaction I've heard to Okada in most of this year, probably since he first came out. And I think partially because he was against a heel, people felt like it was okay to cheer him, tonight. And so it was okay. We know we're going to get.
They were justified, and no one was going to make them feel bad, and Okada was going to make them feel bad. It was going to be fine for just a little bit.
Yeah. So it starts out kind of slow, and which I think was smart, to kind of slow it down a little bit. And it's kind of Okada's character. But also it made sense in the context of the match. But also it allowed Okada just kind of to work the crowd a little bit, which it was the peak of which was when he ran the ropes double crossways on Ricochet, and then followed it up with just slapping him across the back of the head, which the crowd loved. Biggest pop, great moment, and very Young Bucks of him to do that. So he's picked up some good tricks from them. He was just great tonight. He played it slow. Ricochet did most of the work. I felt like it was a little bit of a house show vibe as far as like how they were playing big moments and stuff. It wasn't like bang, bang, bang at the beginning. But But all the things that people were knocking Okada for the last several weeks, and even in the tournament itself, of him being kind of a little slow, his timing's a little off, he's just, not as much spring in his step.
Oh, he was still holding back on this one.
He was holding back for sure, but like the drop kick was
acceptable.
on point. Yeah. They made a point that he didn't really leap with his flying elbow drop. He just sort of, like Tony pointed that out. Let's see. Ricochet dropped him on his head. I can't remember exactly what the move was, but he dropped him on his head. There's a point where I was worried that Okada got knocked silly because it was like he did not have full control over Okada when he was dropping him. And he hit pretty hard.
That one right on his neck that Okada just looked like he was.
Yeah.
There was about a minute sequence where Okada took that shot on his head, and then Ricochet did the springboard onto Okada's like groin.
Yes.
And it was just like that just felt like you were done with this match at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And he pretty much was done because it was not long after that he just hit a Rainmaker and won. Not a huge back and forth sequence or anything. It was just Okada got the advantage, hit the Rainmaker, one Rainmaker, no kick out. He won. And the crowd loved it. You could hear them kind of buzz as they realized it was going to be Okada and Ospreay for the final. And Okada went to the back, and then out came former world champion Swerve Strickland with the first no Prince Nana. And I thought, oh boy, what's going to happen here? Swerve.
I'm locked in for another one, my friend.
So if you missed, I think it was Dynamite this week. There was a promo between or a segment with Swerve and Ricochet where Swerve told Ricochet that he hopes he wins because if he doesn't, he's going to embarrass him and he's going to make it big. And that's what he did. He came out. This was right out of like a 2017 humiliate somebody in WWE moment to me. Prince Nana comes out with rolls of toilet paper, which someone pointed out to me in the chat. I had forgotten this, that was kind of a bit of a clever Nana thing to the days of Jimmy Rave, who used to get toilet paper thrown at him back in the old days of ROH. So that was an interesting little tribute there. They handed out rolls of toilet paper to the front row, and Nana was careful to tell them, please wait for the cue when they get it. And then Swerve just mocked him, called him Trevor, and wished him a happy new year, counted to 3, 2, 1, and everyone threw toilet paper at Ricochet, who just sat there, took it, and seethed. Not as well as Kyle seethed, but he looked pretty mad. So I'll stick with the AEW side of this, and then you can talk the bigger picture.
What the fuck, dude?
On one hand, I feel like this was like, okay, clearly I think this is leading to something of him snapping, going full heel, or like joining the Hurt Syndicate, whatever, and it's going to lead to a feud and all that stuff. That's fine. That's fine.
Sure.
But there's other things happening between now and then.
Sure. Doesn't matter. Tokyo Dome main
Ricochet
event.
has a potential Tokyo Dome main event. Yeah. Would that be the main event?
What?
Would on January 5th, would that be the main event?
It could be Gabe Kidd and Kenny Omega.
And Kenny.
It could be Claudio Castagnoli and Shota Umino. You never know what happens on January 4th, Kevin. You never know. Everything is contingent on what happens the day before. The whole thing is a mess. Here's the deal. I've done videos about this where I've been exceptionally frustrated about Ricochet's booking in AEW because of its association with New Japan Pro Wrestling. We're going to try and get this video done in 90 minutes, this live show done in 90 minutes. So we're not going to revisit that part of it here per se. But I find myself incredibly frustrated with the booking of Ricochet. I am assured every time, like Swerve comes out that this is supposed to protect him after losing in the C2 because he's now in a program with Swerve Strickland. The long and the short of it is Ricochet left a mid-card position in WWE to then take a mid-card position in a secondary promotion. WWE was not wrong about where they slotted him in the shows. And the more and more that I watched the booking of him in AEW and potentially in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but he hasn't really even had a match in New Japan Pro Wrestling since he's come back. And he's got a lot to prove in that Tokyo Dome match. Nobody has been proven wrong but Ricochet. Like, Ricochet hasn't proven that anyone else that he is exactly anything other than what WWE said he was. And that's on Ricochet. He's been given every opportunity, but he should not be allowed to say yes to some of these booking decisions that have allowed him to look lesser than what he believes that he is. This is all on him for accepting these decisions and these booking strategies by Tony Khan with a long-term plan of, oh no, I promise you, we've got a great plan at the very end. The careers of wrestlers who were led to glory are littered with stories of the plan was supposed to work out another way. This just feels fraught with danger and completely ill-advised. The way that he's going, perceiving himself as a mid-card wrestler getting punked out by the guys who used to be world champions in all these promotions. Ricochet's never been a world champion. He looks like a guy who just gets pushed down into the locker room as they're walking down the school saying, out of my way, nerd. The real stars are here. And I don't get it. I don't get where everyone thinks, like, this is going to lead to just the revitalization of one of the best stars of the last decade. I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think they think that there's never really been a Ricochet heel, and they're excited to see what they can do with it. And I think Ricochet himself probably has a high level of tolerance for this stuff because of where he came from. And which, to your point, he probably should have a lower tolerance because of where he came from. But
he walks.
I think he
works with other people. I get it, but you have to think about yourself. This is a star-driven business, right?
Right. No, what I'm saying is, I think that he thinks this is going to help him get over as a heel, which he's never done before, and he's excited to try.
I think he should look at the blueprint of what they've done with Adam Cole and worry.
That's a good point. Yeah. Right. Because if Ricochet has a model for who he should be, it's Leo Rush. Like, Leo Rush is a guy who's out there who's an effective heel and a flashy superstar. And Leo Rush, if he inhabited Ricochet's body, he would be a huge star right now.
I'll tell you what, he needed to get lessons from Adam Cole about how to act like a heel. If he took a lot of what Adam Cole did as a heel and tried to incorporate that into his personality, he'd come off a lot better than he does as Starscream to Megatron. Like, I don't know who he's trying to prove, but everybody's just cackling like, look at me, I'm a real bad guy. I'm a bad guy. Just cackling to the TV, and it's like you're emoting, you're getting it, but like you're trying to convince yourself more than you're trying to convince everybody else. Like, just go out there and do heelish shit.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm not gonna defend his run in AEW, but I hope that he can figure it out.
I hope they can pivot as well.
Yeah. All right. Next we had Will Ospreay interviewed backstage, who cut just a heck of a promo. A very profane one. Hitting himself in the head, made himself dizzy in the promo, which I thought was fun. And basically asked the fans to like preserve their energy because he's going to need it later, which I thought was a really interesting thing. There was something when I was sitting in on the Dynamite show last week, there was someone who was there live who reported that at the taping that Ospreay had come out and kind of like the way they characterized it was he kind of like was kind of begging people to cheer more. And that sounded odd to me. So I'm going to take it with a grain of salt as far as how they interpreted it and what he actually said. But when I watched tonight, that's kind of was like, I wonder if this is kind of what they was talking about, where he's basically telling people, hey, don't burn out. We're going to need you to cheer really hard for this next match. But in character, it was, in character, it was, I've lost blood. I'm weak. I'm going to need the strength of the people to help me carry through. So I thought he delivered it well. I thought people responded to it really well. It was a great promo. Okay, here's the match that I mistakenly picked as the sleeper match of this show.
I slept through it.
I thought this was going to surprise some people and be fun because we have this tradition now of ending each year with a really enjoyable, fun women's hardcore match that usually happens on Rampage. But now that Rampage is no longer with us and it wasn't on that show, I thought, well, this must be their, annual hardcore match. But I thought that's so weird that we just had this big bloodbath in the first match. Surely they're not going to, do this again. And they didn't. And I was very disappointed. I was very sad to, it was okay. If it had been a TV match, it would have been like, it was fine. Thunder came out. They started right off by diving at her outside. They did a lot of smash mouth, just like hard hitting each other with things, throwing each other through tables and boards. And Mariah got a bottle of tequila and spit it in her face. And, they just did a lot of that stuff that normally just kicks things off, into a wild brawl, which I thought, as a palate cleanser, that's kind of fun after these last two matches to have, but it just never got out of like second gear. Do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I thought these two were troopers for having to be in this spot. God bless them. They had to follow two C2 matches, and they had to do something different. Tijuana Deathmatch made me laugh when I realized what it was, and then I saw like the lowrider bike, and you saw Thunder Rosa come out with this pinata, and immediately John LaRock and I pinged, there's thumbtacks in that pinata.
Thumbtacks in the pinata,
probably not candy.
Yeah,
and we're watching this match, and it's one of the safest hardcore matches you're going to see in a lot of the ways. It's just kind of like, it was step by step, like, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to bring out the tables, to the point where, like, John mentioned this logic in the middle of it. It's like, there was already a table on the other side of the ring set up for the finish, and they couldn't do anything with it. So Thunder Rosa had to get another table to do her spot of launching off. But anyone think about it, like, why didn't you use that table that was already over there instead of grabbing it? But because they were trying to outsmart themselves with all the hardcore moments.
It was just a little over-contrived.
It was just a little over-contrived. It almost feels to me like Thunder Rosa has a little bit of a confidence issue because she goes back to the well of these hardcore matches because her greatest success, and when she feels like she has the most like audience connection, is with these big spectacle matches. Because every time she tries to just connect with the audience, it's just the wrestler doing a match, there's something missing, and this is what she needs. And I don't know what the compromise point is here, but
that's a really good way to put it, because that's what it felt like. It felt like a try-hard hardcore match.
Yes.
And it was like what made Thunder successful in those previous matches was the intensity of the character and personality that she portrayed, and the hate and all that, between the
hunger to prove
performers. Right. Well, I mean, even just how you portray yourself in the match. This match, it was like, we're doing this spot, then we're doing this spot, then we're doing this spot. And it was more just like running through a series of things. There was even a point at the end where they had to reset because Thunder was choking Mariah with a chain. And at the finish was that she was going to reach for the bag of dirt, throw in her eyes, and then do the pile driver. The problem was when she put her in the chain, she was out of position in the ring, and there was a chair and a trash can in between her and the bag to get to. So Thunder had to release the chain, pick up the chair, set the chair aside so that didn't even do anything with the chair. And then Aubrey had to move the thing out of the way so they could go back to the spot and reset for it and set up for the ending. Now I will say the ending, like, I think happened so quickly once they did the thing. I think there were people that, it kind of popped them a little bit, I did like Mariah just getting a dominant win. I'm a fan of Mariah's. I thought she carried herself pretty well in this, even though it wasn't that great of a match. As far as just like, hey, she put off a challenge, she won the other person's match, good for her.
Yeah. I said pretty much everything that I think, like, it was fine. And the right person won. And I think Rosa's probably gonna, move down the steps a little bit, and we're moving on to who do you think is up next for Mariah?
That's a really good question. That's part of what makes me think that they're going to go to Tony pretty quickly. But
what about somebody wins the Stardom show or the Wrestle Dynasty in Challenge?
Well, my dream booking is that Athena wins that show.
Oh,
wins that 4-way. What is it? 4-way, right?
It is a 4-way with I think Stephanie, Momo Watanabe, Willow, and Athena.
My dream booking is that Athena wins that, and then that's her springboard into AEW proper. But I don't think that's happening.
No, I don't think so either. I think she is going to be the longest reigning champion of a promotion nobody watches ever.
Yeah, yeah. It's the Bruno Sammartino of
just a real winning strategy there. Real quick, yeah. I wanted to say thank you to Logan James, Lady B, Mike Gilbert, and John LaRocca for throwing some comments in there and being in the chat. If you are watching, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, throw in a comment where you see. We love that kind of stuff, and thank you for the Fight Game Media support.
Yes, I've been very bad about checking the chat this weekend, but I have it pulled up now, so we will put comments up as people add them. All right, here's now. Yes. To quote,
I had that one locked and loaded for you.
Exactly. that you just recur to that whenever I trip over my own words. All right, here's a match. This was my bathroom break match. I did watch it, but my gosh, I gave 2 rips about this match. This is like you could delete this entire thing and I would not miss it from the show.
Is the long national nightmare finally over?
I am at the point where I would rather lose MJF than have to put up with MJF in this feud anymore. Now, hopefully it's over now.
You and I have not talked about this, but I have very similar feelings.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's talk about this match and then we'll get to it.
When MJF came back, I was one of the people who was like, well, clearly they have written off this thing and they will not be going back to this because they realized how bad this feud was. I was very wrong. That was
an amazing conversation we had 6 months ago.
I was very wrong. And I'm so sad to be wrong. Because
I wish you were right because I'm exhausted of this feud.
So I will quote Ryan Pike from a Fight Game Media Discord, who, when this match started, said he is excited to see Adam Cole get revenge for Adam Cole betraying MJF. Like this feud is so topsy-turvy up its own a-hole. Yeah, it just loops in on itself. It means nothing. I have a long time been a fan of Adam Cole. I honestly, at this point, do not care to see Adam Cole on wrestling television ever again. I feel I have seen everything he can do and ever will do, and there's nothing he's going to show me anymore at this point. Now, I don't mean to disparage him as a human being or even as a performer, because he's a good in-ring performer. But as far as like how he presents himself,
fresh coat of paint to you?
He's more of a fresh coat of paint and just going out and saying the same catchphrases every time and thinking that he's super over because everyone says boom along with his entrance. Like, MJF is still a great talent, and he is so brought down to nothing because of this feud. And the way it was booked so just to summarize, they had a match. It was kind of boring. MJF worked his ankle. Taven and Bennett, I think they were teasing it up for everyone to think that they were going to turn on him, but they didn't. They did get ejected, and Adam Cole lost. So his buddies didn't help him, and he lost pretty clean, actually, trying to cheat because he had the ring. He was about to try it, and MJF beat him to it, hit him with the heat seeker to win. And then MJF goes to Pillmanize his ankle. Roddy enters. His music distracts him enough to save him, and then MJF bails out. But then Kyle comes out. Again, I'm thinking, well, maybe Kyle's going to turn on someone. Like, I'm only thinking, like, the only thing that can make this interesting is if, like, some, random turn happens. But no, Kyle throws him into the ring. They do a high-low on MJF, Roddy and Kyle, tag team move. and Cole drops the ring on MJF's chest to show that he's above the ring, and that he got the last laugh.
MJF is still the rightful winner of the ring.
He is, but Cole got to show that he doesn't care anymore about the ring, so he got the moral victory. No, it's just that kind of like BS booking, which makes like nobody really the winner. And as Larry Sternshine said, the real devil was the friends we made along the way.
The people that you have to look in the mirror are the real devils.
Yeah. So now we have the Undisputed Era back together. They're all good guys instead of being the devil incarnate.
Safe.
MJF is, who knows what MJF's going to do next?
Safe.
Who knows what Cole's going to do next? Yeah.
All safe. All just safe decision making. Here's the thing. You and I are both very well aware of the medium of comic books, superheroes in particular. You and I both know that once you've established a superhero, there's a certain status quo. And for an extended period of time, a short period of time, you might make changes to that superhero, but you always revert back to what you think is going to be safe, is going to make you the most amount of money, and what you are most comfortable with, and that's
those things aren't necessarily connected, though.
No, but when you carry that same philosophy to MJF, you start thinking this guy hasn't changed his character. He's still doing the same Dynamite Diamond Ring match he's done for the last 5 years. It could copy paste. He's tried to do stuff with his character, tried to do range of being a babyface, tried to do a different version of a heel with the Triple H stuff and the leather jacket. When all is said and done, it's all not worked. He's gone back to the well, to the same guy he's always been, and it's starting to stale out. And I don't mean that in any other way of like, this guy has to understand that it's on notice. It's like when you were the hot thing in 2019 and 2020, and this gimmick was really working because you were making the audience mad. You then kind of bought into your own hype, and you kind of took over the promotion and, hijacked a match with Wardlow and kind of took your ball and went home. And, this whole devil gimmick just kind of propagated from that. Actually, this whole thing started with that. So he's almost reaping what he's sowing in terms of what he built and how he built it. This whole devil thing was all out of him trying to prove his value of how important he was to this promotion and how it couldn't live without it. Well, here we are now. 5 years later, you tried it, it didn't work, and all you are doing is going back to the same things that you've been doing for the last 5 years that have felt safe. And he's going to fail a number of times. But this man will not succeed unless he decides to do things that are outside of his comfort zone and give up on the things that he feels safe, because it will bore the audience before he's able to do and take action. This is the fair warning. It's like he's got to grow.
Now, I thought this year, though, I didn't love the American Championship gimmick early in the year.
But that's what I'm saying. It was a boomerang. You went right back to the status quo.
Right.
It was a little bit of a thing. It's like none of it.
So that's something I would really love to know. The behind the scenes of is how much was MJF really being like, what I really want to do is resolve this Adam Cole storyline, or how much was it just being like, well, what else are we going to do with Adam Cole? Like how much is that as MJF wanting to do that, and how much is
who wants
just
to
not
work
knowing
with MJF when he's not even around half the time?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Adam
Yeah,
who really, like, just give me a program, give me anything.
Right.
MJF is over here with like, yeah, I'm off for like 3 months, and this is the only person that's willing to work with me during this time. It worked out. We can move it all behind us. But man, what a clusterfuck mess up to that point.
Yeah, yeah. And everything you said is like 10 times for Adam Cole, because he's sitting there going, oh yeah, you know what I need right now is to reunite with the Undisputed Era, the Kingdom from ROH in 2016. Like the least over
and
guy.
I was like, it was safe, but right now, like that's what they all need. Like they all just kind of like there's no rehabilitating Roderick Strong to what he is anything other than what he is.
No, honestly, what the most interesting thing they could have done right now would have been for Adam Cole and MJF just to realize that they love each other and are both evil bastards and be a heel tag team who are like constantly trying to screw each other over, but are also just like, just go, like, if there's any part of that they did before that probably would have been interesting now, would be that.
I honestly would have loved, and I don't know if any wrestling promotion has done this, but what they could have done, and I just thought of this right now, is they could have treated it like Warring Land. Like, we split it, and it's not like a draft, but it's like, MJF, your territory is Collision. Adam Cole, your territory is Dynamite. You do whatever you want on that show. You leave me out of it. You do it all in here. And it's like that unsteady truth where it's just like, I don't like you. I don't like you. But this is your territory, and we will have this like mutual evil, like mafia, like warring families kind of like uneasy. They need to do more of that where it's just like, we know that like there are no winners if we get into a war with each other. So instead we propose you do this and you do this. And then you do like weird negotiations with that instead. And I feel like that would be a better way of going about doing
it. Yep. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see what happens with actually I won't be interested. I will be curious to see what happens with the Undisputed Era after this. All right. So following that, they announced Garcia versus Briscoe for the TNT title, which you mentioned, and Leo in Action getting their title shot against Private Party. Both of those on Collision, which I like. They are starting to get into the habit of announcing matches 2-3 shows ahead of time, and building to those. So that's fine. No complaints there. All right. Next came the meat match: Konosuke Takeshita versus Powerhouse Hobbs for the international title. Even though I wouldn't necessarily say that Konosuke Takeshita qualifies as a big meaty man, as Biggie would say, to be a meat match, the fans wanted this to be a meat match, and I think Hobbs did too, because there were a couple of times that he started chanting meat during the match. He started just yelling at the crowd, "Meat!" This was a fun match. I thought Hobbs did really well. I think a lot of the perspective on this match of how much you like or dislike it would depend on what really perspective you're coming from. If you were looking at the year that Konosuke Takeshita had, and what he has shown he can do, and the level of stardom that he can carry based on his New Japan work this year, you will probably see this as a C-level Konosuke Takeshita match.
Okay.
If you've just been watching AEW and know that Takeshita is really good, and want to see Hobbs do well in the biggest match of his life, as many people have said, you would probably say that he delivered. That this was a really good match. So I presume you were in the former camp of that.
I would say that I was a little confused, more so than the Ricochet match and more so than a couple of these other matches. I didn't understand why this match needed to happen tonight. I didn't think Hobbs benefited at all with a idea of Takeshita having likely 2 matches at the Tokyo Dome and then another match at Battle in the Valley in San Jose. That anyone would have benefited by doing the match now instead of waiting 2 more weeks to do that match afterwards. It would have made the stakes higher for Hobbs. I don't like Hobbs constantly losing on these pay-per-views. I'm a huge fan of him, and I feel like he's not a guy that you need to be squandering these type of losses with. At the same time, and I mean this in no disrespect to Hobbs whatsoever, that was the weakest Takeshita pay-per-view match that has been on AEW.
Yeah.
That's still a great match.
Still good. Yeah.
The quality and the caliber of a Takeshita match on pay-per-view is exceptionally high, but this is now the floor. Like this is the one that you'll compare as like, was it better than this one as the match? And it just, there was something a little bit missing. But for not a lack of these two beating the crap out of each other and going incredibly hard, it felt like the effort to protect Hobbs went a little too hard with the knee brace and a couple of these other moments that was just kind of like,
especially after a whole match around the knee right before it.
Yeah, there was something about it, but I did like that they put the choke on him, the guillotine choke on him before he put his finisher on him. I thought that was an especially nice touch to really cement that you had to do something a little bit extra to put him down.
I think, yeah, I do not disagree with anything you said. I think because I was so looking at this as the Hobbs match that I didn't really knock Takeshita for kind of, slowing it down a little and being more simple with it. I did think one of the comments I made in the Discord was that Hobbs was selling his knee better than Cole was his ankle. Like he actually seemed like, there was a cool move he did where when he did a power slam, there was a move where Takeshi was coming at him and he did a power slam. And then I didn't notice until the replay, but they made a point that he was selling the knee after the power slam because he hit on his knees.
Right.
But when they showed the replay, when he did the power slam, he made a point to hit on 3 points instead of 4. So he raised his right leg, the injured leg, up so that when he hit the power slam, he hit on the other ones so that the injured leg would hit less slightly. And it was like that kind of little stuff that I'm like, that's cool. I like that. So from that perspective, I enjoyed it. I'm curious about you watched this where you were with John LaRocca?
Yeah, I was watching it with Dave and John.
So LaRocca goes way back with Hobbs, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So what was his take, if you don't mind sharing? Did he enjoy? I wonder if from that perspective, was he kind of that thing of looking at it like, I'm looking at this from my guy Hobbs's point of view, or
like he was watching it and he was happy that Hobbs got the opportunity. I don't want to like speak too much for him because he's probably going to have tape tomorrow night. But there was nothing negative about like he's cheering on the guy. And, we're talking about Cal's talking that it's from Oakland, picked him up from the streets of Oakland. I look over at LaRocca. It's like, yeah. That's not quite really the story. It's like, yeah, it's kind of hard to say East Palo Alto is a hard neighborhood. Like, no, it's not. East Palo Alto will get you. But no, Hobbs has legitimately like come up from that area, and everything about what you hear about him is true. He is a great guy, and he came from a very troubled like neighborhood where it was very hard to stay safe, and so. You see him and you see what he's done and everything he's made himself. Like I watched him at those APW shows that John was booking. Those kids loved him. Like he is everything that you think he is in terms of a nice guy. And like him watching it is just watching the mechanics, watching the way the story is going. Like I'm pretty sure that he was, happy with the way that Hobbs was trying to tell the story with his knee. But it's not really the kind of match that I think John loves in general.
Right. All right, fair enough. He will have his own take on that.
It'll be on the Fight Game
tomorrow
night.
Yeah,
I think on this YouTube channel.
Yes. All right, now let's go to what was really the sleeper match of the show, in my opinion. Mercedes Moné versus Kris Statlander for the TBS title. I have to say, I was going in mad that this match was happening. I felt, but part of this is because I missed a lot of TV, but it seemed like there was no reason to have this match. Other than Stat said, hey, you beat me before. How about we do it again?
Yeah.
And it just happened. And it seems like that was the whole build.
Yes.
So I also was mad because in the meantime, they did a pretty good job of lighting a little bit of fire under the character of Anna Jay and having her portrayed as improved and a level above that she left at. Mm-hmm. She had a match with Mariah May and then moved into a program with Mercedes. And to me, I thought if you are not building to Anna Jay, similar to like you said with Private Party, in a way, if you have invested this much time in Anna Jay, you need to put her in a position to say that you are behind her as a star. Now, I'm not saying she would have, needed to main event All In or any of that. But as a TBS match on World's End, where it's clearly not one of the main focuses of the show, to me, either at Full Gear with Mariah or this show with Mercedes, I felt like, hey, you've got basically a free space of a women's match. It just needs to be a title defense. Good job. It doesn't need to blow everyone away, all that stuff. You may as well do that with her. So going into this match, I was like, why is Kris Statlander getting this match? I was wrong because clearly the reason she was getting it was Saturday night. And clearly the reason she was getting that match was because Mercedes Moné knows that she can have a great match with her and wanted to have another one. And that's fine. I wish the booking was better leading to it, but they've set up now where they could go back to this match at almost any time.
I think they're 100% going to this match, and I think it's going to be a very big match when it happens.
Yeah,
a huge match when it happens.
Yeah, and it was very clear that Mercedes knew how to work with Stat. The Stat knows how to work with her. That they've built some trust with each other, and they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Yes. And it was great. It was just a great match. I mean, and it started out great. Like it felt like
it was paced well.
It was paced well. There was a certain point where I was like, this is like those 80s Flair Sting matches where you have a really great worker who's working with someone who's good. I would say Stat probably is better. I don't know if she's better than Sting was at that point, but someone who's getting it, who can hang, but has this big man, little man dynamic. Even though Flair wasn't that little, but the way they played it. And they did that kind of match, but it just leveled up above that as it went on. With once they moved, it was once Mercedes Moné did the 3 Amigos and ended up doing like 10 Amigos.
The 7 Amigos?
Yes.
That's when they got the crowd.
That's when they got the crowd, and that's when the match leveled up. It stopped being everything that you would expect. They did some really interesting things that I'd never seen. When they rolled out of the ring, taking the ring skirt with them, I thought, that's odd. That must have been a mistake, but it wasn't, because they had spots built around the ring side getting exposed. Mercedes had a moneymaker outside, and then this interesting spot where she put her foot in between the bungees where she couldn't get her foot out, and she tried to go for a count out, and Stat had to unlace her boot and get her foot out of her boot and wrestle in one boot for the rest of the match. Beat the count. Fantastic camera work on Statlander
that was the moment.
So they that actually was separate. She went inside. She hit an F5 on Mercedes for 2. The crowd booed that like crazy because they wanted to see it. And then there was a wicked pile driver outside the ring that looked like Owen Hart on Steve Austin level bad to me at first. I was like, oh my gosh, this was bad news. And it might have really hurt, she may not be feeling it yet, but at least she didn't seem injured. And but it looked bad. And so you thought, okay, well, this is fine. They can go to a thing here. Perfect camera work going to Mercedes' reaction as she's waiting for the 10 count, and then out like a phoenix from the flames, like she just Statlander, and the expression on her face where she like barely is with it, diving into that ring to beat the 10 count. That crowd went insane, and then they just kept going, and
they got me on that. I thought she was going to lose by count out.
I thought she was going to lose by count out, and I thought that's a perfectly fine finish. I liked the finish, and they came back in, and then and then I thought, well, this is gonna be one of those things where she's gonna she'll beat the 10 count, but then she'll like go out to the bank statement like right after or something.
It
But
was
no, they went back and forth.
It was the equivalent of the 2 7/8 like pinfall arm raise. That's how close it was.
Yeah.
To the it was unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Perfect. It was great. It was perfect. They traded some holds. Mercedes got the STF on her. Kris got to the ropes. Did some pin exchanges. I expected this to be kind of a pass out finish at this point, but they did a crazy amount of pin exchanges, just trading pinfall attempts. And Mercedes got her into a crucifix and then hooked the leg in a cool way to get the pin. And
you know what kind of cradle that was?
No. Was there a term for that?
No idea.
It was like a crucifix, but she reached over and hooked the leg so she couldn't. I don't know, modified like crucifix.
I've seen NXT pins where they try and do something like that and it looks gnarly. This looked beautiful, and you know who won, and your heart broke.
Yes. And yet it was one of those things where it was like it wasn't a banana peel finish. She didn't eke out. She won because she was a smart wrestler. And I liked how even the commentary played it up of like, sometimes the champs get away with the skin of their teeth, and that's what makes them champs. And she played it off great. You can always tell when Mercedes knows she had a great match because she gets really emotional about it. And they almost did the NXT I love you kind of thing, and I was glad they didn't. It's because Mercedes just went back up to the side, and as she left, Kris played it off really well too. She didn't try to like, oh thanks, and bow, because she gave a great performance.
She was crushed that she lost.
She was crushed, and she just looked and said, I don't know what you're cheering for. Like, I lost. Sorry.
So Kris has already won this title. She has nothing to prove other than beating Mercedes. And now she's lost twice. To me, I am now convinced that Kris Statlander is the number one person to beat Mercedes Moné when she has the world title. The match that they have between Mercedes Moné when she is going to be the world champion and Kris Statlander challenging for her for that, with that video, that clip of Mercedes slapping her in the face saying you're never going to be champion, was done for a reason. I saw that and I said, that's the moment right there. They've got a plan for this. This is to get Kris Statlander to the top level, and I am here for it. There's nothing you can convince me that that's not like the plan in 10 to 14 months time.
Yeah, I could see it happening in Texas. Where's she from? Statlander. She's from the Northeast, didn't she?
I believe so. I saw her at the La Boom show for the first time when WrestleMania was in New York around 35, and she was wrestling for the small promotion, the women's promotion that was I wish I could remember the name.
There's not like a big hometown.
I don't know where she is from offhand, but there is going to come a day where like you talk about homegrown, like day one people.
Yep.
Long Island. She's from Long Island.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything I said about Anna Jay, they're doing with her.
Yeah.
And she's more deserving of it because Anna Jay's not there yet. But so I eat my words on all my complaining.
If you are gonna be, she is the number one person homegrown that they need to focus on to world title before anybody else.
Yeah. All right. Now Mercedes also now is credited with the longest AEW women's match and the longest WWE women's match of all time. She had a 34-minute match against Charlotte.
She might have a very long. She might have the longest women's match at the Tokyo Dome if all things go right with Mina Shirakawa. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen.
But it could.
24:35 was the time of that match, which was surprising.
I need to look up the longest women's match at the Tokyo Dome. I hope it's longer than 25 minutes.
Yeah. I guess probably an All Japan women's match. Maybe did they ever do the Dome?
I don't know. I'm not going to presume any
trivia for later
on this right now.
Yeah. All right.
I have a propensity to look real foolish when I act like I think I know what I'm talking about.
Me too. All right. So, okay. Now we've got
deep breath.
Yeah.
An hour and 20 minutes in, and we are going to talk about this match.
Yeah. C2 finals. I imagine that when Tony Khan signed Will Ospreay and Kazuchika Okada, I'd be willing to bet that in his mind, this match was going to happen on the last pay-per-view of the year in 2024. I think he had this in mind as the finals for the C2 as soon as he signed them. And for good reason. So you pointed out that the first card of the year, first major card of the year, which was the Tokyo Dome in 2024, featured Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay. Now the last major
Battle of the Valley. It was in San
Jose. Battle of the Valley.
It was their last match with each other on their final tour after they're like, we're both out of here, and then all of a
sudden, yes,
they were doing that in the
Okada won that match as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Much friendlier terms, much smaller consequences.
Yes, and they definitely played up. Excalibur did a good job of building up the history between them, the kind of the little brother factor that Ospreay's always had with Okada. That
is actually a legitimate thing from their time in Chaos.
Yes,
he was treated as Okada, like Okada considered him his little brother. Right. Like that was not a derogatory thing. That is a legitimate, they were brothers.
But they played up well. I thought the storyline aspect of what Ospreay had to do to get out from the shadow of Okada being similar to what Fletcher did to Ospreay, and just kind of framed this match well as a chapter in a long history between two great performers, and the fans immediately were like, this is what I came to see.
We were hoping we get it, and we're getting
it. And so they're just beside themselves before the match even starts. Ospreay came out barely even cleaned up from the first match. Thought he overplayed it a little bit coming out. He was a little overselling a little bit, like stumbling to the, I was like, that's a little thick, but
drunk.
Yeah, it was fine. JR was on the call. Was fine. He mostly just kind of said the same things that Caliber said differently. So, I mean, what do you even say? This was up there with probably their great matches.
Even if they tried to sabotage this match by announcements or work rate, there was no sabotaging this match.
No.
Like these two came out there and Okada was ready to work. Yes. Ospreay was ready to prove that he could have two match of the year candidates in one night. Like, naysayers be damned. Like, these guys came out here with something to prove. And, well, I think they proved it.
Yeah, they did. And, I won't get into the TikTok of it. You should just watch it. But, essentially Ospreay's playing that he is hanging in there and he's doing everything he can do, but it's just slightly off. So he's just not quite there in the match. And Okada's taking advantage of that, controlling the match more. So Will's more hope spot. Big move was Will hitting Oscutter on the floor. That really got him playing into the crowd. Okada hit a great drop kick. All the people that complained about his time on the drop kick, like he nailed it tonight. Then Will got a Styles Clash again, which won him the previous match. The crowd popped for because you always pop for a Styles Clash. Got a 2, and then Okada got a Rainmaker for a great 2 count because the Rainmaker has been very protected. And again, just like the Statlander match, that's when we went into the next star level of territory. Ospreay started bleeding, reversed a Rainmaker into a Spanish Fly in just a perfect reversal. No sold a drop kick, hit an Oscutter, then got hit by a drop kick again, and then Will hit a Rainmaker. This is when they're just like, this is two people who know each other so well. This was the New
Japan finals.
Yes.
This was that New Japan, like, we're going.
They were going full G1, yeah.
Yes.
And it was great. And then finally hit just a series of reversals that were so fast I couldn't even keep up with them. There were then there was a Stormbreaker, and then Okada hit the Rainmaker, a great looking Rainmaker that Will just flipped or head over heels for. 4-3, great peak, great finish to the match. It was just a very fast finish once it
kept it under 20 minutes, just like the rules of the C2.
And and it wasn't like one of those epic like 45-minute matches. Like they kept it short. It was great.
They had a lot of post-match stuff to get to.
They did.
This was okay. So there are people that are going to be like, "What is the Okada matches that I need to watch coming out of New Japan?" And there's many. There's G1 matches. There's Tokyo Dome matches. There's random Sakura Genesis matches with Shibata that you should check out for a variety of reasons. But you haven't had the Okada matches in AEW where people say, "What's the Okada match that I should check out?" Check out to check out. And this was the match. This AEW match is the signature standard bearer. Like, if you want to see what Okada can do in AEW, what he's capable of, the legend of Okada of what he did in other promotions, this is the match that you need to watch. You need to, buy the pay-per-view, watch the pay-per-view, sail the high seas, whatever you're going to do, watch this match, because then you'll understand what Okada is really about.
Yeah. Finally, they defined who Okada is in AEW. And he is a guy who has to be beat. Like, he is not, whether he has a belt or not, or whether he's in a tournament or not, he's the person who is like a final boss type character. And that's what he felt like tonight. So let's see. One little thing I want to point out from the match was the finish. How well Will Ospreay. I noticed a lot of little things tonight, but when Will got hit by that final Rainmaker and they counted 1, 2, 3, on the 3 count, Will kind of twitched his head up like he was trying to kick out, but only
like
his brain was there.
Nothing left.
His body had nothing left, but his head was there. Like he was like, it was like his heart was still in the game, but his body gave out. And it was such a nice little detail in that. And so he played it off well too. And Okada showed a little, nice soft handshake to him. Didn't give him the finger or anything. And
that was so weird because he's still supposed to be like a bad guy,
he is, but I think it's just one of those ones where it's like you just can't have that good of a match.
It's ambiguous, and maybe it's a hint towards something different going in the future, but it's still just enough. It's like you do these little things, and you just need to be more thoughtful about what people can interpret it as being.
Yeah. I don't really read a whole lot into it. I think it was just them trying to just give credit to Ospreay in that moment for what he did tonight. Okay, so then
he can't lose anytime soon.
No, he's done. I think it was fine.
Shut that down.
It was fine to take some losses in the C2, and every other loss he's done has meant something. So, but yeah,
he is far and away the guy that needs to win the world championship from John Moxley.
Well, we'll get to that. We'll see.
I haven't found the guy yet, other than Will, that's going to be the guy. So let's get there.
Okay, so then Chris Daniel comes out and says his job is to present the belt to him as the new champion, but he can't do that because he's no longer an EVP, which is very interesting because Paul Fontaine called this on the Dynamite show last night. That's how they would reveal Kenny coming back, is that Chris Daniels is no longer an EVP. Which I'm going to stick a pin in a thought, but it plays into the next match. But he says this man is, and the crowd immediately knew who he went. Kenny's music hit. Kenny came out in a just great suit, and everybody just went insane. It went insane. It felt like a big moment. Took his sweet time coming down as he should. Gave the belt to Okada. Okada holds the belt up, and Omega, they don't really say anything to each other, and Omega just sort of backs out of the ring. Tony Schiavone, interestingly, points out, we don't know when Kenny Omega is going to be able to come back to the ring yet. even though they had been promoting the show that he's going to be in the ring in multiple times through the night. But I think Excalibur corrected him later. So I'm curious if Tony even knew.
Tony was in the back on the microphone guiding these people to talk about this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's perfectly aware of what these guys are talking about on the microphone. He may not
Tony
be like telling them. Tony Khan telling Tony.
Oh, no, I'm talking about Tony Schiavone.
I understand, but Tony Khan is there. He can.
Yeah.
If he wanted to facilitate this information to these guys, he could.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, you'd think a co-promoted pay-per-view they would, want to be promoting. Anyway, poor Gabe Kidd just gets no mention. They did make a point to frame a shot of Okada with the All in Texas sign prominently displayed. So that seems to be a clear hint.
I thought that's where we're doing it.
Clear hint. They may as well have pointed at it. So that's great because I'm planning on going.
I can wait 6 months for Omega and Okada to happen again. I really want Omega to get his legs underneath him because what he went through, frankly speaking, is not the expectation of him being Kenny Omega that we are familiar with for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I will strongly temper your expectations. I think the personality and the general ring prowess of Kenny Omega is going to get him very, very far. But I don't know exactly how Kenny Omega is going to look in a week, in a month, and in 2 months. It could be a very quick progression where the confidence is back and he's there, or it's going to take a little bit of time. We don't know.
Or it could be a completely different performer for all we know.
Absolutely. We don't know.
Let's see. Oh yeah, someone pointed out nice of Kenny to put the belt on Okada when the last time we saw him, Okada attacked him and tipped him off a stretcher on the way to the ambulance. So you kind of got to just decide whether you're going to be okay with that or not.
That was where I was frustrated because that was a failure of everyone to not mention that in any way, shape, or form. Announcers, that was the announcer's job. And if the announcer didn't do it, Tony needs to get on them to talk about that kind of thing.
And what that tells me is that they are not planning on. Now, I've been wrong about this, about them not planning on revisiting feuds, but as we've already seen tonight. But
a pin on
it. What that tells me is that the Elite versus Elite feud is not what they're doing.
Okay, so here's where we're going to deviate from the script a little bit. Have you been following any of the New Japan shows?
No.
So there was a show called Strong Style Evolved last week that had Jack Perry in a tag match with Takeshita versus Shingo Takagi and Yota Tsuji. After the match, in which Jack Perry...
I did see this.
After Jack Perry pinned Yota Tsuji, the Young Bucks came out and propagated a feud potentially with Hiromu and Naito and the LIJ, setting up their tag title stuff that they're going to be doing. But Perry had issues with the Young Bucks and was mad that they weren't there to help him out in any way, shape, or form in these things. They kind of blew it off. And to me, I was gobsmacked. Absolutely, just blown away that on the backstage comments that you can find on YouTube and whatever for New Japan Pro Wrestling, we were getting full-blown AEW angles that have not been mentioned whatsoever on AEW. Yeah. I don't understand what's happening here, and especially the fact that it's Jack Perry and the Young Bucks, which I feel like AEW fans would like to know that these things are happening on this other programming. There's nothing. There's no footage. There's no mention. There's no nothing. And right now, the idea that Okada's won this championship and has had none of these other people around, it's like, why does he need them around at all? It seems like he's doing just fine by himself.
Mm-hmm.
There's just questions with the way that they're doing things.
It's very BTE of the Bucks to do that, to just have a whole separate thing going on that's outside of the TV. Also weird that struck me. I did see that little piece. It was also weird that Jack Perry was the sympathetic one in that like the Bucks were playing off like the heel, disingenuous people. So I think a lot of people thought maybe when they were leaving AEW TV for a little bit that might be coming back as, against the Death Riders or something like that.
I think Sam Shipman actually thought he might join the Death Riders.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
Jack Perry joining.
That'd be one way to do it. My first thought was that he would join the Callis family, but kind of consolidate the anti-Kenny people into.
You could just bring House of Torture.
But anyway, at any rate, I think the lack of acknowledgement of that Winnipeg angle, I think my guess is that it's intentional, at least for now.
I feel like it was a year and a half ago, and I was shocked to realize it was like 8 months ago.
It was only like 8 months ago. Yeah. All right. Okay.
This was a fantastic match. It was the highlight of the show on a show with many highlights.
Yes.
And if they had stopped the show here, I might be recommending this to be one of the pay-per-views of the year. Unfortunately, Kevin, the show did not stop here.
The show did not stop here. I
didn't ruin the show.
We were texting a little bit, and I was like, they should have. I thought they should have swapped it.
You are correct.
I'm correct from a pleasing me point of view. I see from a business point of view why they chose to end the way they did. That does not mean I liked it. Okay, John Moxley, Jay White, Orange Cassidy, Hangman Page for the AEW World Title. We still haven't seen the world title belt since Moxley won it, which I don't like. Other people do. This is just kind of a four-way, brawling outside. There's a lot of House of Torture style, Death Riders just intervening freely all over the place. And then, trading finishers, two people getting in, person jumps out, another person comes in. Just kind of one of those bing bang four-way matches that you'd see that I don't really like. But it was fast. It went by fast, and I don't even know how long it was. It felt like 10 minutes.
15 minutes.
Sure it was a little longer than that.
Short match.
Finisher after finisher. Moxley wins with the Death Rider DDT on Jay. And I remember in the Discord, everyone thought, "Oh wow, the show's going to end at 10:30. That's amazing." And no, the show was not ending at that point because Death Riders came in and got Jay, and they acted like they were going to Pillmanize him or hurt him in some way. And FDR's music plays. They come down. They do not intervene. They only come down and sort of stop this violence with their mere presence and music. Crowd did react well to them. Then the music changed, and we saw FT rated R. The R was covered with Edge's R, which people really popped for, and then Edge came back. People did really respond really well. He's still a star, at least to that crowd. And part of it's the music. His music just kills every time. So he comes down. They go into the ring. They're squaring off. Copeland takes his time. He squares off with Mox, spears him. Then they smash a chair, and he does his crossface thing, which I felt like was a little one step too far for this kind of kickoff of an angle. Christian's watching this because that's what I forgot to mention is Christian's watching this whole match with his entourage, which I swear I thought Kip Sabian was Sean Ross Sapp when I saw him.
Oh, wow.
I was like, what's he doing? Oh no, that's just Kip Sabian. One side. Then they make a point to show that Hook is watching them from a different box. Hook had none of them had anything to do with the match or the rest of the show. I think a lot of people predicted, I think you predict, or not predicted, but at least hypothesized that one way they could end this show was Christian tries to attempt to cash in and Copeland cuts it off, and that's his big return. I think that's what I expected too. It seems like they're not doing that at all. Christian just sort of bailed. Edge calls out Mox, calls him boy, because he was
wrestling while
he was entering puberty. Yes, he was entering puberty when Edge, which was like, I don't really know why you're saying
that's a good visual. I did not enjoy that, but okay, sure.
Yeah. And then says that rated FTR is taking it all. Crowd cheered that. Mox did a good job of being the bewildered champion, of I won the match, but I'm off on my heels. And as Lady B from the Discord pointed out that she saw on Twitter, that the show, AEW's World End show, closed with Dean Ambrose, Cesaro, The Revival, Edge, and Christian, all as the focal points
savage
of this show. Yeah. So, from a new TV deal, we're simulcasting on Max, and I'm trying to get as much star power as I can. I understand.
Got a lot of people back.
I understand ending the show with Adam Copeland.
Absolutely.
I get it.
Yep.
I don't.
There are ways to do it. I hear you. There are ways to do this that would have worked better than this. Okay. You could have ended with Kenny Omega, and you could have had this be the semi-main, and you could have had the same effect. I think Kenny Omega is a bigger star than Adam Copeland to these AEW fans.
To the AEW
Kenny
fans.
Omega came back, that place exploded. When Adam Copeland came back, they got hyped.
Yeah.
There was a difference.
The music was louder than their cheers.
It was, and like after that match with Omega and Okada, like the crowd reacted to the Spot Fest. The Shield Power Bomb that they did on Moxley and kind of recreated that thing. The Switchblade on Marina Shafir that ended with Jay White losing the match. Those were the things the crowd reacted to, the little things here and there. It got very TNA-ish in this match, with Wheeler like taking out referees and pulling out referees and all of these other things. It got silly. It got contrived, and it got to a point where it's like, this is kind of not what I want out of my AEW main event.
No.
With that said, like, this was the world gun. This was the blow off. You kind of need like a clean slate going into the mats and all this stuff. It's like, it's a new year. You're talking about the mother of all simulcast or whatever you want to call, whatever they're calling it. Like, I don't care if Tony Khan really likes Christian and wants to make sure that when they do that contract opportunity, like it's a legitimate opportunity because Christian is a name and all these things. This was the night to do it. Let's clear the slate of all this stuff. You have Christian coming down, trying to cash in after the reinforcements that were always mentioned that never showed up in this match. Like Christopher Daniels never showed up for Hangman.
Chris Daniels didn't show up for Hangman after
the conglomeration never showed up for OC. And the Bullet Club never showed up for like Jay White, even though they said they were going to do that. Had they all showed up, taken out all the reinforcements, Moxley had lost, all the people leave, Christian comes down. They try and like do that. They start the match, and then all of a sudden FTR and Copeland come down. Christian eats the Death Rider. They lose, and then all of a sudden you have Moxley facing off against Copeland. You get the same exact thing. You have all this stuff. You had a half hour left over on this show. Like, the way that they ended it is fine, but you don't need fine. You need exciting. You need like give the people something that just like pays off everything. Yeah, Christian has had that contract for 3 months, but he's a sneaky bastard, and you want him to get fucked. And if he got fucked on the last show because Copeland came back and did it to him, that serves the purpose of having Copeland and Cage in a match in Australia. And then one of those two guys could have fought for the number one contendership to face Moxley at Revolution. And you get to the same thing. But now you're just kind of spinning your wheels, not laying out this path that people watching your product, your fans are saying like, oh, I can see point A to point B of how they can get to this thing. And it makes sense. And this is how it's fun. This makes Australia. I want to see this Australia match between these two. It's not happening, but theoretically, you could build these things. You could have had Moxley and Jay White. You could have had Copeland and Cage. The winner of those two matches face off at Revolution. And it's like you could build all of these shows one bigger to the next. But you're not doing it. And I don't get it. Thank you, John. It's been a long day. It's been a very long day. My potty mouth is getting stronger and stronger.
I think you're right on all the booking as far as what they could have done differently and things like that. I think in terms of just like whether they should have ended with Continental Classic or World Title, I think they should have ended with Continental Classic. I don't know if that's correct in terms of like you're trying to launch on match. Well, not even that, because I think at this point, the Continental Classic is the point. Like, I think I would have even been fine with not having a world title match on the show and saying Continental Classic is the biggest deal right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be the main event of the show. It's going to be the finals of the show. When you say like, who's the bigger star to the AEW audience, it's Omega over Copeland. Who's the bigger star to the Max audience or to the TBS audience? I think it's
that could be a completely different answer. Yeah.
And so I think ending with the person who's going to get you the headlines on Sports Illustrated or, Variety or whatever. I get that. But
very sad, yeah.
But that still furthers your point of saying they should have done more to, instead of just show up and, hey, we're going to blah, blah, but actually have something happen there other than, so I don't know. I'm very iffy. I've always been very mixed on Copeland and AEW because I feel like he's sort of like, he's the punk who doesn't make everyone mad. Like but I blame him for Ricky Starks not being around. Like,
don't blame him for Ricky Starks.
I don't really, but I'm just saying that one of the last times I saw him was when they had their tiff on, and it's like,
I would go so far as to say, we don't know a whole lot about what was going on with Ricky Starks and that thing.
I know.
We could definitely put together that relationship was fraying long before.
I know.
The thing got public.
I just still choose to blame him.
Our narratives work for us, and I'm going to support you on this belief.
Yeah. Like I would like to not need an Adam Copeland. Is basically how I feel. I would like to not need a Bobby Lashley. I don't think we need Bobby Lashley, but but I get the value that they're bringing. And I think as long as he's got something in the tank, and I think he does, and he still draws people and gets people excited about his matches, that's great. Then that's fine. How do I feel about Edge versus Dean Ambrose being like the next, AEW main event? I don't know. I hope that it doesn't come to that because that's not fair to Jon Moxley to say that. But
I will say this in response to that. I believe that the AEW World Champion, while World Champion, should be beating the top names. And in my mind, Adam Copeland is more of a top name than Orange Cassidy and Jay White. And that is strictly due to the way that Tony Khan has booked 100%. His talent. Hangman Page, I still believe, is a huge star, but in no way to the credit of Tony Khan booking him for multiple losses over and over and over. He is succeeding despite the booking. So we get to a point now where I need to see the AEW World Champion defending against legitimate world title contenders that haven't been marginalized by the booking up to this point. So I want to see Moxley versus Omega. I want to see Moxley versus MJF. I want to see Moxley versus Copeland because these are the top stars of the promotion. I want to see the top guy beating them. So when the guy comes along who does beat Moxley, it actually matters because all the other guys who were the top stars at some point couldn't get it done. And here we go. Here's the top guy. But this requires a company-wide effort. It requires the top guys to get on board and making a new star and potentially losing a little bit of the stranglehold they have on their own spot in order to make their own promotion and company better. It is a selfless act they need to do in order to see this through. And right now I'm getting the indication that a lot of the top guys really don't want to get on board with this thing because they're not going to come out looking good in the end. And I'm like, that's not what you signed up for, is it? Like, but you're part of a company now. And if you're not the guy, you got to help make the guy.
Yeah. And I will say, I'm way more interested in Adam Copeland challenging for the world title than feuding with Christian.
Sure.
So I'm happy that it wasn't just all back to that. And then, if he's going to be there, then yeah, exactly. Use him for what he can do, which is, would it be better for Adam Copeland to lose to a Will Ospreay or even an Okada?
I want Adam Copeland in there more than I want Darby Allin. I'll tell you that much right now. Like Adam Copeland feels like a main event match. the way that they've treated Darby Allin and a couple of these other guys, it's just like Hassan has a comment here. This is the issue with bringing in too many WWE talent.
That's
absolutely. Kevin hit the nail on the head when the show ended, and you had 6 guys circling the ring, with a 7th guy in the wings that were all AE or WWE based talents at some point, or got the majority of their fame and notoriety from there.
And that is something you kind of have to accept as a promotion gets older. It's been 5 years. You're gonna have people who are coming from WWE into the thing. But I get it. So I'm not just anti WWE, but I do feel like they have to bring something unique. It's Hurt Syndicate's a really good example of, have they been able to demonstrate that they're bringing something unique or something that wasn't tapped into at WWE? I haven't quite seen it yet, even though I find them entertaining. But yeah, I agree. What I don't want to see is what I saw tonight, where you sort of have this, like, here's the sicko wing of AEW, where we have the amazing matches and the great work rate and all this stuff, and then we have this other side that's like, here's all the star power. You need to start making what set them apart.
It's starting to feel like an anthology.
I disagree a little. I disagree a little bit about Darby, because I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy that is going to beat Moxley, and they will get to it.
You are cute. You are so cute.
I think what they're doing is what they're doing.
Believe, but I just don't.
Yeah.
There's something about Darby that makes me think like he is going to be the sentimental favorite to win the title one day, but he doesn't need to win the title to be Darby Allin.
I agree with that thought. I do.
Yep. So.
All right. Well, let's end on that. We could probably
lovely. It's been a pleasure to see you. We should figure out a way to get together and talk about this AEW product a little bit more in between some of these pay-per-view.
I know.
It seems like you have thoughts that you'd like to get off your chest a little more often. So maybe we'll talk about that off air and figure that out.
Yeah.
You all let us know if you want us to come back and talk more about AEW and our particularly dry observations about this promotion.
Yep.
So.
All right. So I will be back. So Wrestle Dynasty, what's your plans for the
okay, so this is gonna get wild. I am going to preview Wrestle Dynasty with Mike and JD on Voices of Wrestling tomorrow night on their show. So look up Voices of Wrestling, the Mike and JD show, multiple YouTube live stream. We're gonna preview that. I got my show, Speaking of Strong Style. We're doing our normal preview with my co-host Stephen Conway Thursday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern. He's actually going to be in Japan for
that's right.
Preview, and we are going to have Chris Samsa on for that.
Oh, fantastic!
Then Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, we're recapping Wrestle Kingdom, which I will have watched that morning. Sunday, 5:30 p.m. Eastern, we are recapping Wrestle Dynasty, which by that point I will have hated my life and all the decisions that I've made regarding podcasting and up to this point. Yes. But you won't know that when we're doing it because I'll be having such a great time. Yeah. And then we've lined up a guest for the show before the Battle in the Valley that Thursday, doing post recap stuff. And then the Battle in the Valley, going to recap that the week after. My God. That's a lot of podcasting. If you are not tired of me now, you will be tired of me in 2 weeks because I was tired of me.
Well, but, I appreciate you kicking off the season.
If it's not me, who would it be? I watched too much New Japan for my own good.
Right. All right. So I'm not sure if I'll be back. I probably won't plan on doing a Wrestle Dynasty recap if you're already covering it. So I don't know. Maybe I'll pop in with you guys.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Come on.
All right. So we'll talk about that. We'll announce more. You can join the Fight Game Media Discord by emailing gg@fightgamemedia.com. There's always good discussion there. And you
can find me at Jeremy Finestone on Blue Sky, Jerry Finestone on Twitter/X. Before Elon Musk censors me for something I don't know what I did.
And I'm Kevin Ely, ELY. On all major platforms, although I'm still getting my feet wet on Blue Sky. So for me and Jeremy and all the folks at Fight Game Media, we will see you in the near future. Thanks for watching.